sorry to stop so quickly, but I would rather work since we already heard the piece. It's very good. A few things. First of all, this is not necessarily a comment about tempo, but it's marked alla breve, right? And I think it's very important that your pulse should be the half bar. And I hear very, very, very strongly the quarter, and in fact, sometimes even the eighth. And so you don't have to play necessarily any faster if you don't want to, but really at all costs avoid dim, bum, ba, instead. I would say, by the way, as a general rule, in fast music, which has a lot of activity, sometimes it's useful to feel the small pulses. In slow music, where usually the biggest challenge is making a long line, small pulses are your enemy. You know, it's almost always a better idea to think and have a bigger heartbeat, and this is certainly a case of that. The other thing I'd like you to think about, and I'm going to direct it to him because he comes first, but it will apply to you when you come in as well. This theme has 4 parts, right? You know, this one, and that one. Each one has a slightly different shape, and I found them to be a little bit too similar. I think the first one, well, first you tell me, where is the most expressive harmony in this, in the first just 2 bars? Yeah, and I really missed that. You know, this is a piece where the first harmonic event comes almost immediately. You know, this chord is so pure, right? This has not 1 but 2 dissonances in it. And so therefore, that to me is clearly the focal point of the phrase. Now you release. The next one, there's again an event here, but then it keeps going all the way to there and then away. And then this is, I would say, something else. The whole thing is kind of reflective. And now a little bit like the second one. So maybe you could say the second and the fourth are similar, but basically it's that you avoid the feeling of each 2 bars being symmetrical with the other one. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and so again, this needs time, but then it's beautiful. I'm just going to ask you to think of, before you start. You know, and it's been 8 minutes of that, basically, right? It lives at this unbelievable level of intensity the whole time. So this should be such a respite from it, right? So think of that before you make the sound of the first note. Yeah, I said to one of the people earlier, when we want to make a sound that's not big, sometimes we think we should be smaller. No, feel free and open, yeah, and make a sound that's piano but generous. Yeah, and one last thing about the physical part. Make sure that you, not just that you breathe, but that you breathe from here, that you don't let your energy be this high in your body. Rather, down there. That, you know, this is your core of your gravity. Yeah. Much better. Couple of things. Again, I think I still feel like you're making a more intense sound there, whereas for me, even if you want it to be quiet, this should not be passive. It needs to have core to really feel the intensity between the notes. That's the one thing. And again, before you start, count 3 or 4 pulses, but half-bar pulses. Just inside. One little thing which I think is important, the only time actually is in the beginning of the 4 phrases where there is harmonic activity on the quarter is here, right? So this, when you start, this is leading to the next bar. This is immediately leading to the next bar. But here you have harmony, 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 right? So the one exception to my rule of always feeling the half bar would be that one. We were talking in the spring sonata. Miriam was saying to the violinist that the bow needs to be active before beginning the note in the melody. This is the same thing. If you play, sorry, I will sit down this time. If you play from a point of total stillness, your sound is going to be shallow and static. Not a big fussy motion, but just a little bit free in the arms so that the sound is alive. Much better. Beautiful. Yeah, but to make sure it doesn't carry over. That was wonderful, but after dee da dee to ya da 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 dee. 1,
2. Doubling the piano, basically. You took over the same register. He's going 1 octave lower. What do we add? I mean, surely we add something, right? So what is it that you're trying to think of in terms of what are you adding to this?
Certain colors?
The sound of the violin. Yes, absolutely. And let me tell you, that we've got.
Yeah.
We've got a beautiful sound. Pianists can play more notes, trumpets can play louder, oboe can be more penetrating, but a beautiful sound we really have. So I would like you to concentrate your thinking on what is the sound of an A flat major. What is the sound that you're hearing? Because what I hear when you play is something tight. And I don't associate this chord with something tight. I'd rather think of something generous and warm. Okay? So I would first think really of how you want to move your bow, and then fit the vibrato to it. I don't have any rosin, sorry. You don't need to be tense. And when you have legato, then think of your vibrato connecting in a beautiful legato as well. And when I say that...
By the way, what you're adding is you're in a new register, right? Yeah, and Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever had. Have you ever had the chance to play forte piano or Beethoven era pianos? What the thing to me, which is there are many things that are interesting about it. The thing that's a revelation is that the registers are so different from one another. I mean, you go from here to here, and it's like a whole world opens. You know. So I think what's the word? I don't want to say the growling quality, but the that aspect of the sound, I think you can bring a little bit more.
Yeah, and before you start, think of every note as having a beginning, a middle, and an end. When you make a legato, you connect the end of the first note with the beginning of the next one. So it's not about how you start the vibrato of each note, it's rather how you hand over, literally, the vibrato from one finger to the other. Now, in order for your vibrato to be relaxed, think that you start it from the fingertip. You don't tighten anything here. Be as relaxed as you possibly can and start moving from your fingertip. Okay? And if that'll cause a little bit of a tension in your arm, okay, but I feel that you're tensing up your muscles and you shake. That's not quite what vibrato is about. Okay? So can you maybe play...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to say it a bunch of times. Half-bar pulses. Yeah.
It's already better. Now shape your phrase with a bow. So tim half bar la da da da. Really feel how you're going to connect this motion between the bows so everything is very smooth and rounded. Okay?
I think that your internal your own balance of your voices is a little off. I hear a lot of this, which is just doubling the violin. I would rather have, and then especially so that we feel. I mean, that suspension is possibly the most beautiful thing in the universe. Just don't forget that. One more time from the same place. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to get bogged down, but the sound is very beautiful now, but your three C's sound quite similar to me. And I would love for this C and that C to be intensely different from
and it would help if the second one is not quite as intense. You see, because if you want half bar, then and then you see, and the job of the bow is to pull the string. If you put your elbow up, you're less efficient in your pulling. Right this way, you can make a better sound. Can you start right where the violin comes in now? Yeah, push. Just push. Let go. Let go. You don't need to hold on. The bow weighs 60, I forget how many grams. Very few. It's not heavy. You don't have to hold on so tight. It's not going anywhere. It's sitting right here. So push it. You see, my job is to fill the room with sound. So I want to send it out into the room, right? If I do, it sticks here. But you hear it? It's still going. Okay? That's what you want to do. Better. Yeah, I think you're focusing your attention on the vibrato. I don't hear. You see, my attention is on the shape. And then...
Yeah, I already feel that in the previous phrase. I'm completely unqualified to say how, but I do wish that the speed of the bow would describe the difference between. And when you get to the second phrase, this is a challenge, but also when you have it, is that the sforzando is an event, but that it doesn't become the destination. That the phrase is still going. Once more, exactly from the entry of the violin.
So in order to play that C, the third C, your bow is going to go faster or slower?
Slow.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So lighten up the second one and then feel that you are going down with your elbow. Right? It needs to be different from the accent in the crescendo, the next one, right? But it needs to be more dense. So the sound is not louder, it's more dense. It's different. Okay.
Just right from the entry of the violin, I think it's fine.
That is not a subito piano. You see, because your D flat was very soft. You know, practice this way and then find out how much bow you use that way, what speed, what weight. Then stop and do the C. And you could practice this too. And it's tricky. It's not comfortable. But that's the point of the music. It's not comfortable. It's okay.
And just in case we get there, so then this phrase, there again, that's the one where there are three harmonies, so that's three different Cs. Against this, against that. Yeah.
Beginning of the theme, yeah. Can you play a C? I'll vibrate. Work with your bow. You're doing nothing with the bow. Work. Make a sound. You're not making the sound. There you go. Yeah, you're pressing. Don't press. You don't need to press. You need to push. There you go. Okay, so listen to the ring of the sound and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. If you press, you literally push it in. So then what you get from the sound is this. You see, listen to the difference. If you do, it blooms. If you do, it doesn't do anything, right? So let it ring and listen to the ring and adjust the vibrato and the bow speed to make the sound go into the hole. Better. Keep going. That's better. Not slow bow. Yeah, because that's where you relax it. You see, a slow bow will not relax your sound. If you want a relaxed sound, you need a right there. Doesn't do it. So, right? It was better. This is not better. Because you're vibrating. You see, I want you to make it legato. Right? And as your bow shapes, your vibrato needs to shape too. It can't remain the same. Okay? Smile, it's okay.
Very last time. Yes.
Better. Much better.
Now let go. Yeah, I think you can give a little bit more there because that's, if I'm not mistaken, the only harmonic difference between when the piano plays the theme and when the violin does is that you play just and now so I think you can again I talked to, I can't remember who, someone earlier about feeling that there's some kind of a weight midway down the key that forces you to dig deeper to make the sound. And if you can also react to it. Yeah. Just right there is fine. It was really very beautiful before. Good. Easy.
It's almost dance-like.
Yeah. And going along with that, I think that what you have coming now can be shaped more, the character of it can be shaped more by the difference in accompaniment. If I can just sit for a second. That this is basically a chorale at the beginning, right? You know, you have these chords. It's not really a melody. It's right. And now suddenly you have really a single voice melody with a very, very simple accompaniment, right? So I think it turns into song, you know. And I think you can invite him to play in that way. So after and then with much less intensity. It doesn't last long, but it's this kind of respite. It's again this thing that if everything is equally intense, then nothing is ultimately intense at all anymore. So this is the place where you can let go a little bit. Just from oof, sorry.
Nice. There is a meaning to this. It's just a little decoration, right? But it's gentle and a little playful. If you use your bow, it's not going to do it. So you need to show me with the motion of the bow how you think of it. And I'm sure that you don't think of it like I imitated now.
And
okay.
Here, of all places, you don't want to feel. Maybe just from the beginning of that bar. And these rests are very important so that we feel the shape of the phrase, which is short, short, long. La di da di do, la di da da di da. Now da 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 di da dum bi dum ba di. Change back.
Yeah. Enter in the middle.
Yeah, and
it's
can
not
you
a
go?
Beginning.
Sorry. Really, the whole way that this one, there is this fantastic dissonance, but it's still, it really goes not even to the downbeat, but to here. And then releases. Yeah.
Right? So really participate, even though you're not playing anything, so that you don't enter as a beginning, but rather in the middle of things.
And she used a wonderful word to describe sound, which is density. That this is absolutely not a dense sound here, so that after now the density comes back, that the sound again acquires that feeling about it. Maybe one more time in the same place. He is at least the top line. That much is indisputable. Yes.
But I think it's important. You're not unimportant. I don't mean that. But you have to somehow be under. Right?
Especially since I think that it's chorale writing, which is already not so easy to do on the piano, but it's even more difficult when you're the inside voice. So you have to really make sure that you're fitting into the chord of the piano.
But you see, the body needs to participate physically. There's no way to play intense if you're relaxed. There's no way to play relaxed if you're tense, blah, blah, blah. This is really an important thing to understand. And so when you participate, get into the and feel resistance in your arm. It will translate to the right sound. So can you do this? Just yeah.
No, I think to me it's too intense. I would say, lighten up there. Again, that it turns into song again. A song and chorale are very different from one another. Yeah.
By the way, what edition are you using? Henley. Okay. Look at the bowings that Beethoven wrote. Not the same all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. It's interesting to try and understand how it affects what we do. Okay? Don't do the editor's notes. Do Beethoven's notes.
By the way, the slurring in the piano part is also very interesting. For example, if you look here,
and it's different
he
the
slurs
second time.
there, but then the left
if you don't
hand
do the
begins
first
in the middle
time,
of the
it's
bar.
different.
And actually, if you do it, it's quite interesting. But that the left-hand line is beginning there already. That's the point is that this is an end melodically, but it's the beginning of the harmonic progression.
Yeah. Okay.
I think very sadly we better go on. If you want to do the last
if
movement,
you want
we
to
better
do some of the, we have to move.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No, but it would be good to do a little bit of it. But yeah, so I think that's just to summarize, just to use the harmonic clues to really make decisions about what the centers of the phrases are and what the characters are, and always to keep the pulse in the half bar. That it's a very generous, leisurely half bar, but that you never fall in the trap of the beats being very small and local. But let's go on to the last movement.
Last movement a little bit, yeah. Okay, but I don't know what you want to say, but before we start talking about anything else, I would like to say that a little bit of what he was saying about the physical stance of the body vis-a-vis what the sound is. It's true here. I see that all of a sudden your fingers are spread out and tight, and you're tightening the stick of the bow. You see, the bow is constructed to be flexible, okay? If you do this, it flutters. If you tighten here, it flutters much less. This functions as the shock absorbers of the bow, literally. You see, and you need it more when you move faster and with small articulated notes. And you see, if you do this, it comes out very dry and very picky. You see, you need it short. This is not one of those places where you want it to be very expressive, but you want still to have, you need the ring. Okay, so what it is about is really the speed at which you leave the string, right? Right? The more you do this, the less you can do that because your whole arm gets stuck. Okay? At the beginning, you need it, you know, you're at a great disadvantage. Look at the size of this thing. You know, and he can't play much softer than he did at the beginning, I don't think, you know. So you need to make yourself heard. And this will sound much more than if you do that. Okay?
I'm really sorry to go off of this train of thought, but I thought I should point out, and I forgot before, I think you have a mislearned rhythm in the slow movement. These are offbeats.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Sorry. It's the kind of thing I do all the time, so don't feel bad about it.
In the concert, I didn't understand.
No, and I will say that when you played it today for a second, I thought, maybe that's right, and I've played it wrong all those years, so I looked it up now, and in fact not. So the one thing I wanted to say about this opening, and forgive me for saying something obvious, but I think it maybe is important to remember, that before you start the movement, there's silence, right? So I think the question of what you interrupt the silence with is very significant. And normally a piece begins, you know by there that we're C minor. Second movement, immediately A flat major. Does that tell us where we are? I mean, it does because you know. Yeah. But if you don't know, does it tell you where you are? I mean, I think that the point I'm leading to is that there's unbelievable mystery about this opening and drama. And I think it's important to remember that you came out of this slightly dancing, absurd, third movement. That's the technical term, I believe. And I think the beginning of this is a return to a world that's unbelievably dramatic and intense. So think that you begin this, we don't know what it is, and from here we probably have an idea, but it's certainly not the home key at all. Still only dominant, and then silence, And still we haven't had the home. We only get after the violin plays young, and now only here do we land in C minor. So there's an incredible intensity that comes from his withholding of the home key. And again, I'm going to remind you that what I said, that the opposite of the kind of slow movement, the slow music where you need big beats, here I think the small pulse, it's actually the same pulse, it's a half bar, but that's very helpful to feel, to not let it run away. And I know, and by the way, I think that is a little bit too loud. Yeah, I mean, she has to be part of your chord. I mean, here she's already the main voice, but even the first time, she is a part of the chord, and she cannot produce the volume of sound that you are. The other thing is, I know that these have dots, but I would posit to you that a quarter with a dot is still longer than an eighth note. It's not short. And Miriam was talking earlier about notes having beginnings and middles and ends. notes have beginnings and middles and ends. And I think because we're pianists and we can't technically control the note after the beginning, we think it excuses us from thinking about anything other than the beginning. On the contrary, because we can't control it, we have to think about it more. Think less about the attack and more about the continuation and the release. Da, bum, bum. Yeah. Once more. Thing I wanted to sorry, can I finish quickly?
Sure, you finish.
I want you to think, both of you, about the relationship between the end of the first half of the phrase, open, and then yours. Question, answer.
And I was still going to talk about the same thing, probably in a different aspect of it. If you play them all exactly the same, I don't understand that they're interesting harmonies. You see, if it's a... It doesn't tell me any information. Right?
By the way, just in case we get there, so then this would be sort of a normal beginning, right? So now then I want the normalcy, not the normalcy, but a little bit of a feeling of relaxation. That the beginning is... Then now then... It begins on kind of an exhale, this theme, finally. Once more from the opening. Yeah, can you do me a favor and listen to the silence before going on? No, the one before that. Yum, bum, bum, bur, yum. Again, there's no rest in the sense of calm in that silence. I want you to really observe what's happening in it before going on. Yeah. Speak more. Maybe balance a little bit more towards the bass. Again, I talked at the beginning of the day about how your quality of sound, volume also, but quality of sound has to depend on your role. Here you are, the top line, and I would argue the main voice, and she is just somewhere inside the chord. Here she is decidedly the top line and the main line. You have to reflect that. You're playing in a way that really doesn't leave her much of a chance. Last time. From one thing to the other. So, yum, bum, bim, dim, bum, bum, chira. It's a new sentence. There's no question about it, right? Take a breath. It's also, and it's a theme in the way that the opening is not a theme, you know? So I think it involves a different kind of energy, and then when it ends, back to the old kind of energy. So also coming out of it, yeah. Maybe from the second phrase where you have the main line. Yeah. And I think you also can feel the intensity of the silence more. Yum, bum, bum, lum, bum, bum. It's an incredibly dramatic and I would say tragic piece. And correct me if I'm wrong. In fact, anyone correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the first piece that Beethoven wrote that ends truly, truly tragically. You know, traditionally, very often in the classical period, these minor key pieces, they resolve ultimately in the major. But this coda of this movement has no remorse, right? It's a descent into hell. It's kind of a preparation for the Appassionata almost, right? So I think you can have that in mind when you begin this movement, that it's incredibly dark. Yeah.
And by the way, I think that makes you just uncomfortable. Start just as it comes.
Yes? I think we do the same place, the violins phrase. Yeah.
Up, down bow.
Here down.
Here you're bowing. That was fine. On the F, the next F. Down bow. I didn't say. As it comes.
What? Oh.
Just up, down, up. Very simple.
Same. Yeah. Is that the sound that you want for those chords? Yeah, play it once without what comes before. Just directly from there. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, and now do it again and take all of the time. Again, it's a question of washing that fortissimo chord off of you before you continue. Same place. No, but you have to get into it now, yeah. But that was great. So taking the time you need to get to that sound.
But you didn't. You really didn't. You see, what it means is not only that this has to finish, but this gesture, the physical gesture has to be ready. You lift your bow and then you do this. Why don't you just leave your bow in place. Just relax your arm. You don't need to lift it off.
It's important to say that I think it's true on the piano too. There are times when there's a silence where the way you leave one note should help bring you to the next one. This is not one of those places. I think there is a kind of a real pause in the proceedings, and then you begin something again. Yes.
Too much attention to the detail and not enough attention to the overall shape. You see, what you need is a 4-bar phrase, right? You want to... Right? So, that's not the most important note there. And it doesn't need that anyway. So, think that you go...
Yeah, and I think in the context of what came before and what will come after, the fact that this is relatively a smooth line is very important. You don't want it to be too chopped up by the details, yeah. Because is what is the opposite of smooth? Whatever the opposite of smooth is what that is.
Unsmooth.
So then, should feel really kind of, a big arc. Yeah. Just right on it.
Yeah, okay. So it's true that you're interested in each note, but not da 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 da, but each note is almost like an upbeat to the next one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, not 1, 1, 1, 1, right?
Yeah, getting into it, by the way, I would love to feel this breath together and then really join forces as one. Play from the same place, from the second. I think the contrast between, which is, again, has no remorse, right? And of the possibility of the major has to be greater. That something actually opens, whereas there's a tightness about this fortissimo chord at the beginning. Just from ba ba dum bum bum.
Why uppo? You see, you're trying to articulate. If you change your bow, it'll articulate automatically. You don't need to also articulate. You're working so hard to do, and we don't need that. Just move from your arm. You don't need any of that.
I think the difference between and now, can the sound smile a little bit? Nice.
Yeah. So you see, actually, to go along with that, I wouldn't play it on the A string. I think you want to open the sound up. You see, it's not a dark sound here, but rather more open. So. I'm not even talking about the fact that it's more comfortable. I don't care about that. But, it is more appropriate.
Isn't it nice when the more comfortable version is also better musically? It doesn't usually work that way.
Yeah. And then, just before you start, because I don't want to interrupt again, I want you to bounce off his left hand first beat. You see that? Right? Listen to that. Because you're a little late all the time.
Yeah, so just from where you bum 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 together.
And again, the accent is a problem because in this case, it's literally not a good thing. You see, it's not the da 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 da. So, I know that a lot of string players have this mania that they can never be heard. I can't be heard. I have to articulate everything. If you articulate everything, then you talk like this and you say every syllable like that. That's what the result of it is. When you play a piece like this, of this character, with a pianist, with a good pianist, there is a chance that about 20 notes out of the movement will not be heard. Honestly, I don't think it's a tragedy. If I have to choose between losing 20 notes or articulating everything that doesn't need an articulation and interfering with the character, I give up the notes.
That, of course, does not mean that you were absolved
from
not
worrying
about the balance. Yes. And by the way, to that end, I think both of you in this phrase can do, without exaggerating, a little bit of so that your lines really, we feel them crossing. That basically whoever's playing the upper one is temporarily more important.
Yeah, and so the gesture should again be from the arm, not from the finger. Okay? So it's not from the index finger, da 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 da, but and it's easier. It's almost like a swing, palm, right?
One more time.
I think that accent is a little too violent.
Yeah, I think it's just there to show that you're kind of interrupting. Yeah.
But that was much better.
By the way, I also would not put any kind of accent here because I think the point is it's much longer, right? Bar, 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 4 bars, right? So I wouldn't. We got to stop. Unfortunately, it's a real
Before
pity.
we stop, I will just say one thing about the pizzicatos. Pizzicato-like notes with a bow don't get played from the finger, but rather from the arm. And if you listen to the difference in sound, that you have in this, or you hear the difference? There's a lot more resonance because your arm is behind and you're pulling the strings better. And the other thing is, in case you don't know it, but you probably do, the best sounding point of a pizzicato is half point between where your finger is and where the bridge is. Okay?
And one just very last thing to say, because there were occasional balance issues, and it's not because you're insensitive, it's because this is a difficult piece for balance. I think when you play, a sonata like this, where you need to produce an incredible amount of intensity, that sometimes you have to do it with articulation and the intensity of the attack rather than with volume. Because there are places, especially when she's in the middle register and she's playing one line and you have 6-note chords, where if you really play in the same way you would play a solo piece, she just doesn't have a chance. So I think, again, it's about the speed of the attack, it's about really playing with a lot of intensity quickly to the bottom of the key, rather than with, using the full power of the instrument. But really, bravo. I thought there were really many wonderful things with the piece already. Yeah.